so I'm going to stick up here for a Q&A. If you have a question, raise your hand. Jim will pass you the microphone. You need to speak in the microphone, otherwise we won't hear you in the video. So please raise your hand, wait for the microphone.
Thanks, Jason.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Yeah, thanks.
Can you expand on the concept of intermittent fasting and its ability to either help you burn fat or reduce body fat more effectively than just maintaining a consistent diet and consistent exercise without any variation?
Right, okay. Okay, so to expand on metabolism, the question was about intermittent fasting. Your metabolism has two phases. There's the anabolic phase, which is where you're absorbing food and building tissue, and there's the catabolic phase when you're breaking tissue down. So you can think of the metabolic process as the balance between these two processes. Now, when you intermittent fast, or when you go a period without food, you're no longer digesting and absorbing, your body releases a hormone called growth hormone, and this preserves your muscle tissue and releases body fat, which for the most part is a good thing. So your body is actually adapted for intermittent fasting. The whole 3 square meals a day is actually more of a product of developed nations. Your body is biologically built to go for periods without food. Now, I wouldn't suggest intermittent fasting for longer than a 24-hour period. In fact, a lot of people would benefit from going just maybe a 12-hour period. So you can think of the time from when you go to bed and maybe prolong your first meal or your break fast, which is breakfast, when you break the fast, first meal of the day, to later in the day versus first thing in the morning. So intermittent fasting has its health benefits, both from a fat loss standpoint and increasing your growth hormone, which has anti-aging properties. Yeah, you're welcome.
So Jason, on the weights, I get it. We got to lift weights now,
right.
But for a man who's say 53, for instance, like, I don't know, how much minimum to make it not like optimal, but at least like 3 days a week for half hour, or what's your guidance on how much?
Well, if you look at the individual body parts, a muscle thoroughly trained can recover within 72 hours. So you can think of it as every 3 days you're able to train the same muscle group. That doesn't mean you have to, but your body is able to withstand that, even with hard training. So I typically recommend trying to hit the major muscle groups twice per week. So depending on how you set up your training, some people like to do shorter sessions, such as a half hour. And when I do one-on-one training at the fitness center, for example, we get a lot done in a half hour because there's no real breaks in between sets. If you arrange your exercises in a way that you're hitting multiple muscle groups but not overlapping, so like I'll hit opposing muscle groups back to back, you're able to squeeze almost a 60-minute workout into 30 minutes just because there's no standing around. So as far as the timing is concerned, if you're doing efficient workouts like that, I would say 30 minutes 4 times a week, maybe splitting your body, upper and lower body, for instance. So minimum, each muscle group twice per week.
I read some years ago about resistant weight training where you move the weights really slowly, very slow up, very slow down. What's the current thinking on that versus other methods for best results?
Yeah, super slow. I wouldn't go to that extreme because the super slow method is something like 10 seconds up, 10 seconds down, 20 second total. It has a benefit in the sense that it is controlling the weight versus like using momentum or inertia to get the weight lifted. So it does have that benefit. I think it's too far in the opposite extreme. What I say is I want you to lift under control because it's not how much you lift, it's how you lift it. So as you're lowering the weight especially, you want to lower it under control. So think control. I don't like to set a timer or count seconds. I would say super slow is a little bit too far in the other extreme, but it is better than just jerking the weights up. Yeah.
So, Jason, you mentioned that basically, about getting leaner, it's all about calories, right, and how much you consume. Any thoughts on how to distribute those calories in, carbs, protein, etc.?
Oh, right, macronutrients. I tend to shoot for balance because depending on what your activity level is and the type of exercise you do, an endurance athlete, for example, might need more carbohydrates for fuel. Or really anyone that's physically active, because you're using carbohydrates when you exercise. So you can get away with more carbohydrates the more physically active you are. Now, if I'm sitting at home with the flu, I don't need as many carbs because I'm just going to be in bed. So I tend to shoot for, well, at that point, I have no appetite, but I would tend to shoot for more greens, which are lower density carbohydrates, because I'm not active. So I think carbohydrates are the one variable to shift. You can leave your proteins and essential fats basically fixed, but carbohydrates can be as much as 50% of your total calories if you're physically active, less if you're not active. Yeah.
There's a myth around. There's a myth around it's bad to eat your final meal within, I don't know, a couple hours before going to sleep. Is there any truth to that in terms of, how quickly you burn calories or anything like that?
Right, so your body burns calories 24 hours a day. So it all adds up to the same net effect. Now, it is true that your metabolism slows down as you prepare for sleep because you're getting ready for bed rest, basically. But if you think about it, you can do it one of two ways. Like, let's say you eat late at night. You're digesting food when your metabolism is lower. That also means if you balance that with eating less during the waking hours, when your metabolism is higher, you're going to be burning more stored fuel during those hours. If you swap them out, basically, it comes down to you're either burning more stored fuel or you're burning more of the food you just consumed. So it all has the same net effect. Your body burns calories even as you're sleeping. Your metabolism is lower, but it's balanced out with the fact that your metabolism is higher as you're awake. So I wouldn't be concerned about the meal timing. It's all going to even out. What you need to look at is your average food intake over time. So look at the trends.
So, I've heard a lot of people talk about genetics hindering their efforts to lose weight or get in shape. Compared to diet and exercise, which is what you talked about today, what do you think the trade-off is right there?
Genetics are always a reality, and it's always a combination of the two factors. You can almost say it's kind of 50-50, although I would say that if you change your habits enough from the diet and exercise end, you can actually kind of increase the percentage of how much your environment is contributing to your results. So we all have genetic advantages and disadvantages, so it might as well take advantage of them. But that's what you have to start with. So your environment can, you can tip the scales in your favor by doing the right things, and that's all we can really do anyway. So might as well maximize the things you can control and utilize your genetic advantages. Yeah. Let's go, Roy.
So you mentioned the frustration that comes with today's popular fitness publications and trying to get information. Where is your favorite source of information?
Ooh, that's a great question. All right, so not very sexy, but I tend to read scientific journal articles, which are nothing like fitness magazines. There's no pictures. There's all sorts of industry jargon or terminology. That's where I get my information. As far as how that translates into things that are more available to the consumer, I would kind of look at the source of the information that you're getting from the materials that you might have available to you. But for me personally, because I do this as a profession, I get the most accurate information from scientific journal articles. So unfortunately, you kind of have to filter through things you read on the internet or fitness magazines. So not sure I have a better answer than just, the science that's available to us as fitness professionals. Yeah. Not Instagram.
You mentioned working out like the two times a week minimum and versus 4 times. What are your thoughts on diet, shifting your diet days versus you train versus the days that you don't, like more carbs on the days that you do train?
Yeah, that's definitely a good one. So yeah, definitely you'll be able to eat more on the days you train. Not a whole lot. I used to justify this in college, like, oh, I just did a workout, I'm gonna go pig out on some fast food. But yeah, you do need more carbohydrates and protein on the days you train, especially leg days. If you have a good leg workout, yeah, have fun with that, because you'll be able to get away with more food. But it's just gonna be more of the type of foods that you eat that are kind of the building foods, so all your proteins and essential fats, wholesome carbohydrates. But yeah, you'll be able to eat a little more on the days you train. Just kind of go with your general hunger level and kind of eat until the point that you're satisfied enough. Yeah.
I have a question regarding endurance nutrition. So if I'm exercising longer than 2 hours, training for a marathon, Ironman, whatever, when do you really have to start eating something during the activity versus afterwards?
Right. Are we talking about the actual event itself?
Or training?
Or training, yeah. So basically, when your body has a way of storing carbohydrates, it's called glycogen. And depending on your muscle mass and overall body size, you can store up to 350 to 400 grams of carbohydrates. Now, that can kind of accumulate over time, but you kind of have a maximum storage amount. So in that case, the best case scenario is to already have your glycogen stores full for your training, so that when you go out there, you can wait until like your blood sugar starts to dip, that you can kind of consume more of the fast-acting carbohydrates. But ideally, you want carbohydrates already stored on your body as glycogen. And I know this is a hard thing to assess, but the way that you know that you're low on stored carbohydrates is when you feel kind of flat, like the muscles aren't really contracting fully, versus when you're full, the muscles are more plump and they contract a lot easier, and it's, you'll perform better doing endurance activities.
Hydration. Is there any truth to that often repeated suggestion to use whatever 8 glasses of water per day?
Yeah, again, another 8 to 10 glasses of water per day. Another one-size-fits-all guideline. You have to go by your thirst. And I know for a lot of people it's hard to use your intuition because we love the numbers. So 8 to 10 glasses a day is a good starting guideline. I would say the 8 to 10 glasses is probably a little bit more toward the sedentary end. So again, depending on your body size, you might need more than that when you're active, as much as maybe 12 to 16, depending on what you're doing and how hot it is. So other factors come into play. So I would say just drink water until you're not thirsty, but don't try to guzzle it by the gallon.
Jason, of all the popular diets out there, which one would qualify for Jason's stamp of approval?
Yeah. Wow, I'm not even caught up with all the popular diets, but at one point I would say paleo, even though I don't like to label diets or eating styles, but what I like about the paleo diet is that it's an emphasis on more of the natural foods, so like the meats and the whole grain carbs and vegetables and fruits especially. So I know there's some vegetarians or vegans or raw foodists, but I think the closer you get to more of the natural food source versus eating a lot of foods that are processed, I think you can't go wrong with that. So I don't like to be too unbalanced in terms of having your carbs too low, especially when you're physically active, or portioning things out so that your diet is just so robotic. Because we eat for a lot of reasons other than nutrition. There's going to be factors and events where we're going to encounter foods that maybe are not on a specific diet. So you have to learn to adapt and be flexible. But my answer to that is any diet that kind of emphasizes more natural foods, fruits, vegetables, meats, things that come out of nature. Yeah.
Jason, you and I worked together a couple times, and I was a very happy customer.
Yeah.
You're a great trainer. And I'd like to try to find a trainer at my gym because some of the stuff that you showed me didn't translate because it was just different equipment. And there's a ton of trainers at my gym. What is your advice for finding a good one?
Ooh, that's a great one. If you can observe when they're training clients, one red flag for me is if I see a trainer and they're not making eye contact with their client or not even looking at their joints and all the things that are moving, kind of making eye contact at girls or boys walking in the gym or just kind of looking at their phone or something. So that's one red flag. And try to ask them questions where they have to answer it in a logical way. Don't fall for bro science, meaning things that kind of just like sound good and it's what you want to hear, but it's not science-based. So you can try to like ask certain questions and see how they answer it. That way you can assess their level of knowledge and expertise. Don't go by how they look, always. I mean, not all the time.
Jason, can you compare and contrast the benefits, resistance, and otherwise of a vigorous elliptical workout versus a leg weight workout?
Yeah, that's a good question. So a vigorous leg resistance workout versus like an elliptical, higher intensity workout. So your muscles have, well, basically, there's different types of muscle fibers, but the two major ones are like the fast twitch and the slow twitch. So the slow twitch are the ones that when we're doing our lower intensity exercises, or even just keeping your posture upright, those are the muscle fibers that are activated. The fast twitch comes into play when you need more power or speed or even extra resistance. So let's say you're going at an elliptical at a faster speed. To your muscles, it's actually the same as increasing the resistance. Because when you increase the resistance, you are going to be moving slower, but your muscle fibers are actually contracting faster in order to overcome that resistance. So, in my opinion, speed has a limiting point. You can only go so fast to the point where, that's just your limit of speed, or you're starting to risk injury. So, from that point, increasing the resistance still activates the fast twitch muscle fibers, but it's doing it in a safer and more controlled way. So, getting to your question about the elliptical versus leg workouts, the cross trainer that we have in our fitness center, it has a limited range of motion. It doesn't go full incline where you're able to flex and extend your hip and go downward. You would need to do more like a stair climber for that, or doing more of a squats or any of the knee bending motions. So the range of motion is another factor. A lot of cardio exercises do not go through a full range of motion. So that's where a leg workout can kind of fill in those gaps. And I'm not down on cardio at all. I just think we need to kind of tip the balance so that we have the best of both. Don't spend all your time in the gym doing just steady state cardio. Incorporate some resistance because it's still going to have a fat burning advantage, both in the short term and in between workouts.
Hi, Jason. I don't like the gym. What would be the most impactful kind of outdoor activity?
Right. Well, you should definitely not do something you don't like or in a place you don't like. It's a really broad question. I have to know you better. Do things that are fun and that you'll actually stick to, because consistency is the key. So if you want to make it social, or just do something that you enjoy. So think of exercise as a continuum. I know we talk about weights versus cardio, but it's really all about moving your body. Motion is lotion. So for your joints. So So move your body, incorporate resistance when you can. Maybe that's going up a hill. Yeah, you got to be a little bit more creative in the environments that you use, but we can talk a little bit more, get some ideas for you.
Okay, any general guidance on increasing flexibility?
Okay. All right, so full range of motion resistance training does increase your flexibility because you are training through a full range of motion. Now, as far as where stretching fits in, the best way to warm up for physical activity is doing more dynamic stretches. So like, let's say I'm doing a leg workout, I might do kind of some inward and outward leg swings or forward and back. So instead of doing like static stretches, you would want to keep it dynamic because you're getting ready to move your body. And then afterward, you would want to do more of the static stretches. So like holding your leg up either on a chair or on your back with your legs elevated. And the key to flexibility, I don't even like the word stretching because it implies that you're taking it beyond the range of motion. All you need to do is take your muscle to the lengthened position and relax in that position. So, hamstrings, the back of the thighs are one thing that tends to get tight as we sit a lot. Chest is also something because we're hunched forward a lot, so you want to open that back up and kind of relax in that position. So relax in the lengthened positions after your workout or throughout the day. That's the best way to keep your flexibility up. There is a disadvantage to being too flexible, which is, I just opened up another. Okay, let me expand on that. So ballerinas, for example, are extremely flexible, but it comes at the cost of actually stretching their ligaments, which are the things between the bones. So the reason you don't want to do that is because you need stability for strength and basically, keeping your body aligned. So for them, that's a worthy trade-off for being a ballerina because they need to be extremely flexible, but it's really the Goldilocks principle. You don't want to be too tight, but being too flexible actually decreases your strength and stability. So it shouldn't be painful.
Hey, Jason. So if we make the assumption that a lot of us out here today and in the world more broadly aspire to do things like lose weight and get leaner, there's a lot of people that struggle with that. And right. As much as there's an aspiration, there's the gap and there's the reality. So in your experience, working with a lot of clients, what do you see as the most important factors for success in the people who actually make it and are successful in losing the weight and becoming more of a leaner lifestyle type people as opposed to those who struggle and never quite make it?
Right, so that's a great question. I would say the main thing, get rid of the all or nothing mentality. Your life is a continuum. Fitness happens to be a part of your life. There are other things that you need to be doing or that, other parts of your life. So ideally, you want to get to the point where your fitness and your health becomes a part of your life. It doesn't become your life. Now, I lived this life for a long time, and I found a healthier balance where I'm still able to go do fun things and not have to worry about not getting my full workout time or occasionally missing a workout or, breaking my diet if I'm ever on one. You want to be able to go into any environment or situation or psychological mindset where your health is still on your mind. So instead of the all or nothing mentality, think of this all as a spectrum and a continuum. If you happen to slip, whatever your idea of slipping is, you can just get right back on. There's no reason to keep spiraling down because once you pick back up, the results will move back up in your favor. So that would be my recommendation for that. And that's the key to success that I've seen. Yeah.
Hello.
Hey,
so kind of on that note, is it true that your body tries to maintain your weight? So, if you work out, your body's trying to consume the same amount of calories.
Right.
And if that's true, then how do you, lose the weight? Do you have to follow that less than 500 calories rule, or is there some other, is that a myth?
Okay, two good questions. So the first one about, does your body try to maintain a stable body weight? Yes, but it's not absolute. Again, it's going to be a mix of your genetics and your environment. So you can adjust what they call your set point, which is the level that your body tries to stay at. You can adjust it to a lower level if you want to. It's going to take some lifestyle adaptation. It might even require a change in your environment in some way, maybe making exercise more convenient for you and that you're more likely to do it, and getting rid of like a lot of those trigger foods like I mentioned. So yes, your body tries to maintain a stable weight, which is why we don't fluctuate a whole lot, but I could definitely tell you that you can adjust it in your favor, or at least kind of meet somewhere halfway. And it all depends on your environment, and it's really about building habits. Now, as far as the eat 500 calories less per day, I wish I had a visual on this, but the reason why that's ridiculous is, okay, so the theory is that to burn a pound of fat, you need to burn 3,500 calories, which is how many calories a pound of fat contains. So like, the theory is if you eat 500 calories less for a week, 7 times 500, 3,500, you'll lose a pound of fat. The reason that doesn't work in the real world is because if you extrapolate that over the course of a year, 52 weeks a year, let's say you take 2 weeks off, eventually, year after year, you would disappear because there would be nothing left to lose. So the reality is that if I lower my calorie intake to a certain level, my body fat and body weight will come down, and now I reach a new steady state. So now I'm at a new level. So what you're essentially doing is adapting to a lower intake, which will lower your body fat down, but it'll also, you'll hit a plateau, which is not a bad thing. You just have to maintain that calorie level to maintain that lower body fat percentage.
I have a question on the statement that you made earlier. You said that depending on your activity, right, if you're more active, then you add more carb, but right. Less active, you eat less carb, and you keep your protein about the same.
Right.
So if I want to build muscles,
right.
I often been told that like I have to eat more protein.
Okay.
Okay, can you clarify that?
Sure, yeah. So for building muscle, you need enough protein. I'm not able to tell you how much that is for you right now individually, but you need enough. You don't need excess, because excess implies that it's too much. It's more than you need. So it's a mistake to believe that you need to eat excessive calories from either proteins, carbohydrates, or fats to build muscle tissue, because excess already means too much. So you're just storing extra body fat, which you'll probably want to remove later. So with building muscle, you need to eat just enough to maintain your workouts, because your training is going to be the primary stimulus for gaining muscle tissue. And the calorie intake will help sustain that. So when you're trying to build muscle, just make sure you're not hungry, but there's no need to over-consume calories or protein. Okay, we got about 5 minutes, and I could actually chat up front if anyone wants to stick around after one.
It's a challenging job, lots of hours and a long commute each way, so getting her to get to the gym or do any workouts is really a problem the last few months. There is something she has on her phone called 7-minute workout. I've heard of that. What's the expected efficacy of following that type of approach?
Yeah, I've heard of the 7-minute workout. I don't know the specifics of it. There's a lot of workouts out there to follow, but it's a matter of individual preferences. I mean, if someone is just super busy and that's what they can do, then do it. There's nothing magical about it. All of the kind of like, fitness trends are really kind of just marketing names. I mean, I look at exercise as like you're moving the body against resistance. So I'll use whatever tools are available to me. If I'm limited to less than 10 minutes, I'm sure going to get a lot out of that time. So I'm sorry I don't know the specifics about the 7-minute workout. I would say the efficacy depends on how many muscle groups are you working out at one time. I'm guessing it's going to involve a lot so that you're able to get a lot of activity in that short period of time. But it's always going to be better than not doing it.
Jason, I've heard that if you want to lose fat, you reduce the calorie intake, as you mentioned, and then you'll also lose some of the lean muscle. Is that true? And is it possible to lose fat while maintaining or gaining lean muscle?
Okay. Yeah, good question, and I'll clarify. So there's your lean body mass, which is not just your muscle mass. The lean body mass is muscle, bone, all the organs, everything except body fat. And then there's muscle tissue. So it's technically true that you do lose lean body mass as you decrease your body fat, but I'm not too concerned about that because the reason why that extra lean mass exists is to maintain all that extra weight and body fat. So you're not going to lose muscle tissue as long as you're keeping your workouts, and especially your resistance workouts, consistent. The mistake a lot of people make is that they prioritize losing fat and they forget about keeping their muscular activity. So you want to keep that up as you're decreasing your calories because it's the training that's going to maintain your muscle mass, not the calories. Yeah. All right. One or two more, and then like I said, I'll stick around here past the hour if you want to chat. Two more. Abby?
Hey, Jason. So speaking of eating and nutrition, you were saying eat foods that satisfies. Mm-hmm. And some of us feel satisfied after they eat until they're not hungry or feel full, or like myself, I eat till I hate myself. Because the food is tasty sometimes, and you don't want to stop because it doesn't hurt yet. So, any advice on how to gauge servings and quantity and the balance of how yummy the food is and you want to eat more of it versus I'm going to put something pretty disgusting in front of me and only eat a little bit because it's not exciting?
Well, to me, foods that are truly satisfying, like for me, it's like a steak and potato veggie meal. It's very hard to overeat that compared to like the Girl Scout cookies, the trigger foods, because like on the one hand, it is yummy, it's satisfying, but there's a point where you could definitely feel like eating more would be uncomfortable versus other trigger foods where you can eat beyond the point of discomfort and you can still go. So yeah, if you're not good at listening to your intuition, again, I would just still recommend getting your calorie intake measured so you have an idea of how much, and maybe you can like save aside a portion because you know that visually you'll want to finish what's in front of you. So maybe ahead of time, do that on the front end, kind of save some for later, and then you can still kind of eat with your eyes, but you already pre-portioned that. So it's hard to assess, but guilt is never a good emotion when it comes to eating, so don't feel guilty, but kind of get used to the point where you're no longer hungry and kind of just save the rest for later. Yeah. Okay. Two more? One more? All right, Caroline, I'll talk to you afterward.
I had mentioned intermittent fasting and growth hormone and anti-aging. Any other recommendations for anti-aging?
Ooh. Maybe that'll be the next topic, next lunch and learn. Yeah. Let's talk later. Yeah, that's certainly a good topic. So, guys, thanks so much for coming. We have a lot of fun doing this. So you've all been great. Great questions. Thank you so much. Yeah.